I'm Ann Weiser Cornell, and it's my life mission to relieve suffering and awaken possibility. And one of the extreme forms of suffering is being overrun by emotions. So we feel we're being pushed around, we're being knocked over, we lose our sense of ourself, we lose our sense of our own empowerment, and we lose possibilities then as well. So I wanted to talk to you today about some more tips for challenging times, something that I hope will be immediately helpful to you when you experience things like this. And as we were saying last time, the key to everything is to get bigger. That's what we call being self in presence. Self in presence is the natural state of yourself where you are here along with your emotional states. And usually when our emotional states get too strong, they knock us over. And we lose our sense of ourself. We feel small instead of nice and steady and calm. So it's a shift from being knocked over, feeling small, and feeling aware, alert, and present. We can be more intelligent, more available. We can even give company and presence to our own emotional states so that they can tell us what they've been waiting to tell us. So we really have more resources available when we can be self in presence. But that self in presence state is challenging when there's too much going on. So the first tip I want to share with you today has to do with having compassion for why that emotional state would be as big as it is, okay? So it's big, it's intense, it's strong, it's overwhelming, it wants to knock you over. But you as self in presence can turn toward it with a kind of interested curiosity that there's some good reason why it would be that strong. I'm not talking about asking it why. That might be too pushy for the process. What I mean is that you have an attitude that it must have a good reason to be that extreme, that upset. Let me give you an example. This is taken from a man who wrote to me saying that he suffered from surges of extreme anger. He wrote, "I get these surges of anger out of nowhere. I can't say there's something in me or somewhere in me. I find myself abruptly going from one annoying thing to another, and suddenly I'm plunged into a painful state of rage. Horribly uncomfortable. It isn't enjoyable rage. I don't feel strong. I feel small. I feel like I'm outside. It isn't something in me. It feels like all of me." Okay? So I wrote back to him about getting interested in why that anger felt so strong at that moment. And what he discovered was that as a boy, his father had threatened him whenever he, this man, got angry. And so his anger felt dangerous. There was something in him that decided getting angry was dangerous. So see how that works. You've got your natural anger coming up. Life gets annoying, of course, anger would come. But then there's another part of you seeing that as a mortal threat because of what happened in your childhood, saying, no, 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 you can't be that angry. And then it can only come out by surging and taking you over completely. So what he was able to do is have compassion for why his angry feelings would need to be so big. And it turned out that what he needed to do also was turn toward and be aware of that part of him that was scared of his anger. It also had a good reason connected to what happened in his childhood. So that builds his ability to be self in presence, both saying, hello, I know you're there, to the angry feelings, and to something that's scared of him. Well, that shifted things for him completely. And in his next email to me, he wrote that now he was feeling calm, comfortable, and with access to his own inner strength. So that's tip number one today. Get curious. It would be that strong, your emotional state would be that strong for some good reason. So let me share with you an example of a man who wrote to me when he was suffering from what he calls heartache. Here's what he wrote. A relationship has ended recently, and I've been suffering a great deal. Feelings of loss and hurt seem to be screaming for my attention. The transformational element of focusing seems to be limited in this realm of grief and loss. No insight has yet been able to transform these painful feelings of loss that I'm experiencing. So I wrote back to him and I said, I agree that grief and loss seem to have their own timing. They can't be rushed. And yet, there are two ways we can make the recovery from grief and loss and heartache take longer than they naturally would. One is by trying not to feel so bad, and the other is by getting identified with the bad feeling. And those of you who are familiar with my work may remember that what I mean by identified is that you feel you are the grief, you are the loss, you are the sadness. So of course I suggested to him that he say hello to those very strong feelings of grief and loss. But there's something more that can also bring transformation, and this is my second tip for you today. And that is to get interested in exactly what it is that's making this so hard for you. Because when we just assume, oh, I lost somebody, no wonder I feel bad, well, that's nice because it's universal and we realize that our feelings are understandable. But what will really bring relief is to get what it is about this that bothers me right now so much. So in this case, I said to him, well, for instance, it might be that you were imagining your future with her in a certain way. Or you might discover the problem is she's exactly the person you always wanted. Or it might be that when you spend time with the place that's hurting so much, it's that she wasn't exactly the person you always wanted, but you went to all the trouble of making it okay anyway, and then she left you. So the process of getting to know exactly what it is that comes from an inner relationship of listening brings a shift. It brings a relief. It might still need to go through a natural cycle of sadness and letting go, but at least you won't be making that take longer than it otherwise would. So, tip number one, get interested in why it would need to be so big. Tip number two, get interested in what it is about you that is hurting you in exactly that way. Now you might be asking yourself, why do I need tips for extreme times? You might be thinking, my life's fine, it's going well. I don't need to know these things. Well, that's true. And there are always times in everyone's life when we do need some of these tips for more extreme emotions. And if you've got them now, think how much more confidence and resourcefulness you'll have. You might also be thinking that what you usually experience is not too much feeling, but not enough, not much. You go into your body awareness and it feels kind of blank or bland or numb. Well, you know what? That too is interesting. It's often true that we feel blank or bland or numb because we're right on this side of something that would be too much if we got into it. That part of you that wants to feel blank or bland or numb might be protecting you from those strong feelings that it's afraid you're going to fall into if you don't feel nothing. So if you have resources for how to be with strong feelings, then you'll be going into body awareness to get to know yourself better with the kind of strength and confidence that makes every part of you calmer and more trusting of who you are. Okay, so that's all for today. I've had so much fun talking with you.